The resolute Endeavor glided through the inky void, its polished hull reflecting the distant light of a dying star. Captain Elias Kane stood on the bridge, hands clasped tightly behind his back. His sharp, steel-gray eyes scanned the holographic display that hovered before him, detailing the approach to the Zerath diplomatic station. This was humanity's first formal contact with the aliens, a species renowned for their technological supremacy and ruthless conquests. Despite their fearsome reputation, they had extended an invitation for negotiations. Kane, along with his crew, hoped this marked a turning point for humanity's fragile place among the stars. "Captain," said Marcus Hale, the ship's chief engineer, his voice tinged with both awe and unease. "We're within range of the Zerath station. They're hailing us." Kane nodded, his jaw tightening. "Put them through?" The holographic display shifted, revealing the alien delegation. Commander Vakril, the Zerath envoy, stood at the center, his towering form covered in gleaming, segmented armor that shimmered faintly under the cold, sterile light. His angular face and glowing emerald eyes conveyed an air of detached superiority. Behind him, other Zerath observed silently, their expressions unreadable. "Humans," Vakril began, his voice deep and resonant, a subtle echo underscoring each word. "We welcome you to the edges of our dominion. It is intriguing to finally meet your kind, Commander Vakril," Kane replied evenly, keeping his tone respectful but firm. "We come in peace, seeking mutual understanding and cooperation. Humanity has much to offer." Vakril's thin lips curled into something resembling a smile. Indeed, the curiosity of lesser species often leads them to bold ventures. "But we shall determine if you are worthy of such a partnership." The tension on the bridge was palpable. Dorian Chase, the tactical officer, shifted uneasily at his station. "Captain," their tone doesn't exactly scream diplomacy, he muttered under his breath. Kane shot him a brief glance, but said nothing. "We're prepared to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence." "What are your conditions?" Vakril's smile faded. "Conditions? No! Captain Kane, you misunderstand. This meeting is not for negotiations." Before Kane could respond, the holographic display cut out, replaced by an alert blaring across the bridge. "Energy spikes detected," Marcus shouted. "Their weapon systems are online. Evasive maneuvers." Kane barked. "Raise shields." The ship shuddered violently as the first barrage struck. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and alarms blared throughout the ship. The Zerath station had transformed into a hive of activity, its defenses now targeting the resolute Endeavor. "They're jamming our systems," Dorian reported, his fingers flying over his console. "We can't fire back." "Damage report," Kane demanded. "Shields at 40%. Marcus yelled. "If we take another hit like that, we're done for." Kane gritted his teeth. The Zerath had lured them into a trap, a cruel display of their dominance. He had underestimated their disdain for humanity, and now his crew was paying the price. "Prepare to disengage," Kane ordered. "Marcus, divert all power to the engines. Dorian, find us an escape route." "But, sir, that's an order," Kane snapped. The ship lurched as it veered away from the station, engines burning at maximum output. The Zerath continued their relentless assault, their weapons cutting through space like shards of molten glass. "They're gaining on us," Dorian shouted. "We're not going to make it." Kane's mind raced. They needed a plan, a way to outthink their pursuers. "Marcus, can you overload the secondary reactors?" Marcus hesitated, understanding the implications immediately. "It'll blow out half our systems, but it could work." "Do it," Kane said. The ship's interior lights flickered as Marcus rerouted power, the strain evident on his sweat-drenched face. Overload sequence initiated. Behind them, the reactor erupted in a controlled explosion, releasing a wave of electromagnetic energy that disrupted the Zerath's pursuit. Their ships faltered, weapon systems momentarily offline. "We're clear," Dorian announced, his voice tinged with disbelief. "They're falling back." The resolute Endeavor limped into the shadow of a nearby asteroid, its crew battered but alive. Kane slumped into his chair, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "We're not out of this yet," he said, his tone grim. "Marcus, how bad is it?" "We've lost half our power, and our comms are fried," Marcus replied. "But the core systems are stable. For now." Kane turned to his crew, his voice steady despite the chaos. "The Zareth wanted to send a message. They think we're weak, that we'll cower and accept our fate. But they've underestimated us." Dorian raised an eyebrow. "And what do we do now, Captain?" Kane's gaze hardened. "We survive. And then we make them regret ever trying to kill us." The crew exchanged glances, a spark of determination igniting among them. They were outmatched and outgunned, but they were human, and humanity had a knack for defying the odds. The faint hum of the ship's remaining systems filled the silence as Kane stood. He had no illusions about the challenges ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. The Zareth would soon learn what humanity was truly capable of. For now, though, survival was their priority. The stars outside continued to glow cold and indifferent, but within the battered ship, a fire had been lit, one that would not be easily extinguished. The resolute Endeavor docked at an underground military base on Earth, its scarred hull a testament to the Zareth's devastating power. Captain Elias Kane stepped onto the hangar floor, his boots striking against the cold metal with resolute purpose. Around him, engineers and soldiers scrambled to assess the damage, but Kane's focus remained on the larger threat. They had barely survived, and he knew the Zareth wouldn't grant humanity a second chance. General Thaddeus Vaughn waited near the entrance to the command center, his broad frame casting a shadow under the harsh fluorescent lights. A grizzled veteran with a permanent scowl etched into his face, Vaughn greeted Kane with a curt nod. "Captain," Vaughn said, his gravelly voice betraying a hint of frustration, "your report was concerning. We've reviewed the data you managed to retrieve. It confirms what we feared. The Zareth aren't negotiating. They're preparing for an invasion." Kane's expression hardened. "We've seen their tactics firsthand. They rely on overwhelming firepower and superior technology. But there are weaknesses in their systems. If we exploit them, we have a chance to fight back." Vaughn folded his arms, skeptical. "A chance? Against ships that can destroy our defenses in seconds? We need more than hope, Captain." "We have more than hope," Kane replied. "We have their arrogance. The Zareth underestimate us. They think we're primitive and predictable. That's their mistake." From behind, Marcus Hale approached, clutching a datapad. His face was pale, exhaustion etched into every line. "Captain, I've analyzed the Zareth data. Their ship's AI relies on centralized control systems. If we can breach their network, we can shut down their fleet, or at least cripple it long enough to strike back." Vaughn raised an eyebrow. "And how do you propose we breach their systems?" "They'll see us coming a mile away. That's where Dorian comes in," Kane said, nodding toward the tactical officer, who had been silently reviewing a holographic map of the Zareth fleet's known positions. Dorian straightened, his sharp features illuminated by the glow of the display. "Their patrol routes are highly regimented. They're efficient but predictable. We can infiltrate their mothership using a stealth vessel, plan an EMP device to disrupt their systems, and deploy a virus to take down their network." Vaughn frowned. "And you think the Zareth will just let you waltz onto their flagship?" "No," Kane admitted. "That's why we'll need a diversion. A fleet of smaller ships drawing their attention while we carry out the mission." The general's scowl deepened, but he couldn't deny the logic. "It's a suicide mission," he said bluntly. "It's survival," Kane countered. "If we do nothing, the Zareth will wipe us out. This plan gives us a fighting chance." After a long silence, Vaughn relented with a nod. "You have my support, but there's better work." The next days passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus worked tirelessly to retrofit a small stealth vessel with cloaking technology salvaged from the Zerath data. It was an engineering marvel, though far from perfect. Every weld and circuit screamed of desperation, a patchwork solution for a galaxy-ending problem. Meanwhile, Dorian drilled the strike team relentlessly. The hand-picked crew, including himself, Marcus, and Kane, rehearsed every step of the infiltration mission. Each corridor of the simulated Zerath mothership was memorized, every potential scenario accounted for. In quieter moments, Kane observed his crew. Marcus, the eternal optimist, masked his exhaustion with a determined grin, always ready with a joke to ease the tension. Dorian, sharp and precise, carried the weight of responsibility in silence, his confidence unwavering. They were more than colleagues. They were his brothers in arms, and Kane felt the crushing weight of knowing he might lead them to their deaths. On the eve of the mission, Kane stood alone in the observation deck, staring at the stars. The Zerath were out there, their fleet an invisible shadow creeping toward Earth. He clenched his fists, vowing silently that humanity would not fall without a fight. Couldn't sleep either, huh? Marcus's voice broke the silence. Kane glanced over, seeing his friend leaning against the railing. Too much at stake, Kane admitted. Marcus smirked. You've got that look again. The one you had back in the war, just before you pulled off that insane stunt with the orbital platform. This isn't like the war, Kane replied. We're fighting something we barely understand. That's what they think too, Marcus said. The Zerath don't understand us, Kane. They don't see what we're capable of. That's why we're going to win. Kane didn't answer, but Marcus's words stayed with him as he left the observation deck. The day of the mission arrived with grim efficiency. The stealth vessel, now dubbed Shadow Knife, hummed with barely restrained power as it waited in the launch bay. The crew suited up in silence, each man lost in his thoughts. As they boarded, Vaughn appeared, his stern face betraying a flicker of emotion. You bring that ship back in one piece, he said gruffly. Kane saluted. We'll do our best, General. The Shadow Knife launched into the void, slipping past Earth's orbital defenses and heading toward the Zerath fleet. The diversion fleet, commanded by Vaughn, engaged the enemy, drawing their attention with hit-and-run tactics. Inside the Shadow Knife, the tension was suffocating. Every creak of the hull, every blip of the scanner felt like a death knell. But as the Zerath mothership loomed ahead, Kane's voice cut through the silence. This is what we trained for, he said. We've been underestimated our whole lives, told what we couldn't do. Let's show them what humanity can do when pushed to the brink. The crew nodded, their resolve unshaken. The Shadow Knife slipped through the Zerath's defenses, invisible to their sensors. As the ship docked, Kane felt the weight of what was to come. They were inside the belly of the beast, and there was no turning back. The hatch opened, revealing the cold, alien corridors of the mothership. Weapons at the ready. The team advanced, their movements synchronized and deliberate. The plan was in motion, but Kane knew that even the best plans rarely survived first contact. For now, though, they had hope, and that was more than enough. The corridors of the Zerath mothership were vast and eerily silent, their metallic surfaces gleaming under dim, pulsing lights. Captain Elias Kane led his team with deliberate steps, his weapon held tightly as the faint hum of the alien vessel surrounded them. Every sound, every shadow seemed to carry the weight of imminent danger. They were deep within enemy territory now, and there was no margin for error. Marcus Hale crouched by a control panel, his fingers working rapidly as he spliced into the Zerath systems. The alien interface was unlike anything he had encountered before, yet his determination overcame any hesitation. Sweat dripped down his brow as he whispered, I'm in. Power routing looks centralized. If I plant the EMP here, it'll knock out their defenses. Kane nodded. Do it quickly. We won't have long before they realize we're here. Dorian Chase kept his weapon trained on the corridor ahead, his sharp eyes scanning for any sign of movement. They'll send reinforcements the moment this thing goes off, he murmured. We need to be ready. Let them come, Kane said grimly. If we don't pull this off, Earth won't survive anyway. Marcus completed his work, locking the EMP device into place. The small charge pulsed with a faint blue light, a countdown ticking silently on its display. It's set, he said, standing and slinging his rifle back over his shoulder. 5 minutes until detonation. Move, Kane ordered, gesturing for the team to advance toward the next objective. They needed to reach the command center and upload the virus that would cripple the Xerath fleet. It was a delicate dance of precision and timing. Failure at any step would mean death, not just for them, but for humanity as a whole. The team slipped through the labyrinthine corridors, their movements precise and silent. But the Xerath were not oblivious to their presence. The faint sound of metallic footsteps echoed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. They're coming, Dorian said, his voice low but tense. Kane signaled for the team to take cover, his mind racing. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had one advantage: surprise. As the first squad of Xerath soldiers appeared, their glowing eyes scanning the area, Kane gave the signal. The ambush was swift and brutal. Dorian's shots were precise, each bolt of plasma finding its mark. Marcus, though less skilled with a weapon, held his ground, laying down suppressing fire as Kane led the charge. The Xerath fought back with ferocity, their advanced weapons lighting up the corridor in bursts of green and white. Kane's heart pounded as he ducked behind cover, narrowly avoiding a blast that scorched the wall behind him. He returned fire, his shots aimed not for the Xerath themselves, but for the exposed power conduits lining the corridor. Sparks flew as the conduits exploded, creating a brief distraction that allowed the team to push forward. Keep moving, Kane shouted over the din of battle. The team fought their way through the alien ship, each skirmish chipping away at their strength and resolve. By the time they reached the command center, they were battered but alive. The room was a vast expanse of alien technology, with holographic displays floating in the air and streams of data flowing across translucent screens. In the center of it all was the Xerath Central Console, the heart of their fleet's network. Marcus approached the console, his hands trembling as he began the upload process. "This will take a few minutes," he said. "Cover me." Kane and Dorian took positions near the entrance, their weapons at the ready. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor once more, and Kane knew they were running out of time. The Xerath soldiers stormed the command center in force, their glowing eyes and metallic armor cutting an imposing figure. Kane and Dorian opened fire, their shots calculated and efficient. For every soldier they took down, 2 more seemed to appear, their numbers relentless. "We're out of time," Marcus shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. "The upload's only at 50%. Then we hold them here," Kane said, his voice cold and determined. He fired another volley, taking down an advancing soldier before turning to Dorian. "No retreat." Dorian nodded, his face set with grim resolve. "No retreat," he echoed. The battle was chaos. Plasma bolts flew in every direction, the room filling with smoke and the acrid smell of burned circuitry. Kane's shoulder burned where a shot had grazed him, but he ignored the pain, focusing solely on keeping the Xerath at bay. Marcus shouted suddenly, "Upload complete. Then let's finish this." Kane roared. The EMP detonated at that moment, sending a wave of energy surging through the ship. Lights flickered and died, and the Xerath soldiers froze, their movements jerky and erratic as their systems malfunctioned. Kane grabbed Marcus and Dorian, pulling them toward the emergency hatch. "Move! This place is going to blow." The team sprinted through the darkened corridors, the ship shuddering violently as explosions rippled through its core. They reached the escape pods with seconds to spare, launching into the void as the Xerath mothership erupted behind them in a fiery explosion. In the silence of space, Kane watched the destruction unfold, the once mighty vessel reduced to debris. For the first time in days, he allowed himself a moment of relief. "We did it," Marcus said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Dorian smirked, though his eyes betrayed the weight of what they had just endured. Humanity's still here. That's what matters. Kane nodded, his gaze fixed on the distant stars. The Zeraf wanted to kill us, to wipe us out without a second thought. But they underestimated us. They'll think twice before underestimating humanity again. As the escape pod drifted toward Earth, Kane allowed himself a brief smile. The fight was far from over, but humanity had proved one thing beyond doubt. They were not so easily defeated.